Hi class, today's lesson is lesson 5-4. Our purpose for the lesson is to regroup to subtract mixed numbers. So this is an added step when we subtract certain mixed numbers. There are no vocabulary terms to record. There is an illustration, however, that I do want you to record inside your composition books. Not only do I want you to record the expression here, but I also want you to record any of the illustrations that I have here. They're simple illustrations. Let's go ahead and take a look at the problem. Here we have 2 1/4 subtract 1 3/4. What I do first is I'm going to go ahead and put them in column form. 2 1/4 subtract 1 3/4. I know I'm supposed to subtract the fractions first. 1/4 subtract 3/4. In this case, we already have a common denominator, fourths. So I would regularly be able to just subtract the numerators. In this case, I cannot subtract 3 from 1. 3/4 is greater than 1/4, so I can't subtract 3/4 from 1/4. That leads me to go ahead and what's called regroup, or another way to say it is borrow. I'm going to take a whole from the 2 here, and I am going to break it into fourths. Let me demonstrate what I mean by this bar here. Here I have 2 1/4. I have 1, 2, and then 1/4 here. So that's 2 1/4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole and I'm going to break it down into fourths. So now I want you to go ahead and draw this. These are equal. All I've done now is I've broken this whole into fourths. So now, instead of having 2 1/4 represented here, I have 1 5/4. Now with 1 5/4, which is the same thing as 2 1/4, I can easily subtract 1 3/4. 3/4 from 5/4 is 2/4. 1 subtract 1 is 0, so it's just plain 2/4, which equals 1/2. I can show you here as well. If I go ahead and subtract 1 3/4, I'm going to take out 1, and then 3/4, 1, 2, 3, and that leaves me with 2/4 or 1/2. Going to another example, here I'm going to go ahead and do some estimating before I actually solve the problem. Here I have 6 5/12, subtract 2 7/12, and I notice that 5/12 and 7/12 are close to a half. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as part of my estimate. I'm going to write down 6 1/2, subtract 2 1/2. Now I subtract the fractions first, of course, and 1/2 subtract 1/2 is essentially 0. 6 subtract 2 is 4. So my answer is going to be around 4 here. Let's go ahead and put this in column form. 6 5/12, subtract 2 7/12. I have common denominator, but once again, this right here is larger than this. The 7 is larger than the 5, so I can't subtract that from the numerator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow from the 6. So I'm going to make this 6 into a 5 12/12. Okay. That means what I have in the end is a 5, and 12 plus 5/12 is 17/12. Subtract 2 7/12. So I just converted 6 5/12 to, I shouldn't put that there. I just converted the 6 into 5 12/12 plus 5/12. And that gives me 5 17/12. Subtract 2 7/12. Now I can subtract 7 from 17, numerator from numerator, and I get 10/12. 2 from the 5 is a 3. I simplify the fraction. It becomes 3 5/6. So there's my answer for that first one. Here I have 8 minus 5 3/4. Well, I'm going to round to the nearest whole here. Well, 8 is already a whole number. 5 3/4 is almost 6. So it's going to be around a 2. All right. Let's go ahead and proceed. I have 8, subtract 5 3/4. Notice I don't have a fraction here, so I've got to come up with one. I'm going to convert 8 into a 7, and that one whole that I took away from there, I'm going to convert to 4/4. So now I have 7 4/4. Subtract 5 3/4. Now I can subtract fraction from a fraction. 3/4 from 4/4 is 1/4. My new number, as part of the next number here, is 7. Subtract 5 is 2. 2 1/4. Now, is that close to 2? Absolutely. It seems a reasonable answer. Lastly, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go ahead and solve 3 1/3 minus 1 5/6. I'm going to take you part of the way through here. 3 1/3. Subtract 1 5/6. Notice that we don't have common denominators yet, but the greatest, or I should say the least common multiple is 6. So I'm going to convert 3 1/3, subtract 1 5/6 to a subtraction of 1 5/6, because 6 is going to be the denominator. But this time I've got to convert 3/3 into sixths, and what I did there is I multiplied by 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2 up here. So now my problem is 3 2 6, subtract 1 5/6. But look at this, I can't subtract 5/6 from 2 6, so I need to go ahead and convert. Convert into what? Well, you've got to convert this into 2 6 plus 2 6, which would equal, well, you're going to come up with that, and then you're going to subtract 1 5/6. Another problem that you have to do is here, explain why you regroup 2 as 1 8/8 instead of 1 3/3 when you find the answer for 2 subtract 1 3/8. Two separate problems. We'll see you in class.